Okay, welcome to the Vulnix from Vulnhub tutorial. I'm currently working through VM Workstation, as you see in the top left corner. Usually I do most of my stuff through VirtualBox and normally on bare metal Parrot OS, but for the sake of this exercise, I'm using a Windows host with VM Workstation. So I've preloaded, I've gone to vulnhub.com. I've downloaded Vulnix and then I've booted it into this VM workstation. I already have a copy of a Parrot bootable image here, which I've loaded into VM workstation as well. So only two hosts on this network, let's say, for now. I don't know. I'm going to be operating all through this Parrot terminal, and the idea of this machine is to go from basically boot to root. So we need to find a way in, we need to priv-esc, etc., etc., and find them trophy flags, etc. So with this one, let's take the basis, let's take the actual scenario of we've been dropped into a network with a set of RDP or VPN credentials to a corporate business, and we now need to find out what other hosts are online, what vulnerabilities they might be exposed to, and what exploits we can throw at them or create in order to get them to root/admin or system level, or maybe even NT authority when it comes to domain controllers, if we're so lucky to find one. So then, without further ado, the first thing always, we could be dropped straight in. Let's confirm our IP address, which is this one here. I'm actually working over wireless at the moment, although I've set it up for Ethernet interface connection. So my IP address, I am just going to copy that there and copy to screen. Like I say, I do usually work off bare metal Parrot OS on a different laptop, so there's going to be a few things that are slightly different working with inside a virtual environment, which I'm not a big fan of. But let's see. Like I say, it didn't take me long at all, and this is how I did it. So the first thing I did, we need to know what hosts are online. So the first tool I used is NetDiscover with the flag switch -R, and then my IP address, because we know that one's live. Checked it up here, and then all I'm going to do is a /24 on that. So it's going to look for the first 3, 8, 16, 24, and then we're going to look for the final host on that. So we're querying this final bit here with a /24. So we run that. If I run that without sudo, it would tell me to run it with admin. So we put sudo in front of that, give it a minute, sends out a bunch of ARP requests, and as we can see, these are the ones that are responding. So what can we take from this? Well, first and foremost, they've got a very similar first half of their MAC address, most of them. This one's slightly different, so that tells me that this is most likely the host that we are going to be attacking. And I don't know that for sure, but it's just by looking at the MAC addresses, we can say, well, actually, yes, they might be VMware, but these are going to be different types of VM MACs for different things. Usually the .1 indicates that this is a gateway, 254 is final address. This .2 I've got no idea about, but it is coming up with the first same MAC address, first half, when we take this bit here down this line, 005056. So from there, we can process an elimination and assume that this MAC address is the target in question and the host from here. So we could start nmapping that one specifically. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this and show you another tool I could have got the same set of results for. This one's used around OSCP, the art of hacking from Not So Secure, and some really advanced courses, and check team member as well, I think, with this one. So ArtScan. Then we're going to give it the IP address, our one, and once again with a / notation to query the host. Make sure it's the first 3 bytes, 8 bits make up a byte, 8, 16, 24, and query my host. There we go. So obviously, like we said before, these need to be run in sudo if we are running at user level privileges, which day-to-day operations we should be really. Okay, cool. And we get the same set of results just to make sure. We could save that off, but we'll come up to it. We'll approach this in a bit of a different way. So we can assume that .130 is going to be our target, and I will show you how we confirm this. So the next thing we do is actually query them addresses, so we can see that it's 192.168.88 dot whatever. So let's query our own. So nmap, call the tool nmap, scan type, version, script scan. I want to check all ports. And I want to save the output in all formats and call it nmap. In fact, I'll call it what's this, Vulnix. And then we obviously have to give it a IP address, so 192.168.88. We could put 130 straight in. That would be okay to query it. We could also put our IP address in and just do the slider notation 24 as well from there. We would run that. This takes a couple of minutes to take to come through because we're querying all ports. We want to save it in 3 different outputs, so nmap, grepable, and XML. We want to throw all the NSE scripts at this. We want to ID the version, so this would take a long time. As we press enter, we can see about the percentages. Now this isn't always, it might get up to about 70-80% and then start going back down. So yeah, this is going to take a bit of time, so I'm going to Control C, cut it there, and this is one that I prepared earlier. So I just did the exact same command above, which was this one, but I saved mine as nmap TCP, as you can see there, in replace of Vulnix. I just called it nmap TCP, and it saves it, the OA saves it in nmap format, XML, and gnmap, wherever that has gone. There, that one, sorry. The reason for that is we can take a set of results and we can use it with different programs. So if we cat nmap, we look at G, it will look quite unfriendly to the untrained eye from there, but with all the details in that. If we take the I forgot what it was, so nmap XML, as you can see, still not user friendly. If we catted the nmap version, we can see that now this is a little bit more friendly to our eyes. So we did a scan for the 1.30, and as we can see, this is how we would now be confirming that actually this is the target in question. With all of these ports open, it's definitely showing us that this isn't just a VM machine or something like that, in terms of just sitting on the network. So the first thing it brings us to is SSH port 22 on the standard port. It's running OpenSSH version 5.9p1 on a Debian Ubuntu. So straight away, this isn't a Windows box. This is some form of Linux flavor / Ubuntu box, which is good. Gives us the key size, 1024.248, and the key in DSA, RSA, this here. Not big concern right now, although we just need to know that that could be some form of entryway in. So from there, 25 SMTP postfixed SMTPD for the version. Quite a valuable service to go over, especially in red team. The reason for that is if we can potentially spoof inside a mail, we could approach the front desk, for example, saying, we are so-and-so, you should have a message from, I don't know, the CEO, and this is his email. We could spoof the email of the CEO, send that to the front desk, and conveniently walk through the front desk. What we can also see is these use commands that SMTP will allow us to use. Not too much of interest here, but certainly this verify, which you've probably heard that before, is we can verify users that are using SMTP, which therefore users in that domain. Coming down, we've got this port 79, really old legacy port called Finger. and got the finger daemon running here as well. So what this is long story short, it tells you which users have previously logged in recently. Effectively, very legacy, not used too much, quite a dangerous service to be running on your host system. So we can query that. That's certainly going to be of interest of us. Not much security around finger. We come down to port 110, 110, which is, as we know, POP3, Post Office Protocol, which is a email service run by Dovecot by the looks of it. And once again, we get a couple of SSL certificates, naming conventions, etc. Then from here, port 111, RPC, not too much of interest as it stands at the moment. Certainly might be able to do something. In fact, that's interesting. Usually RPC is to do with mounting. And as we can see here, usually you would see RPC binds like you've seen here. Usually we don't see NFS specifically, so that might be a bit of a giveaway to a way into this as well. Port 143, IMAP, I can't remember what it stands for. Internet message, I can't remember. Basically, email, once again, Dovecot. So this service, this host, sorry, straight away is telling me that it's riddled with email architecture, basically. And then finally, we come down to here with a few more, once again, POP3 SSL server down there at the bottom. Not too much of interest. Once again, an NFS and some Mount Ds there that we could probably probe. From there, the one for me, I usually work from the top, so I would start attacking the SSH first and then moving my way down. With this one, SSH is most likely going to need a login or some form of key, which we won't have. So brings me to this one straight away, was SMTP can be really badly configured. So from here, let's netcat to, or let's try and netcat to this service. Netcat nc-nv, just connect to verbosely 192.168.88.130, I think it was. And we need to tell it port 25, which we know from this one here. SMTP is running on port 25, the default port. Let's press enter, and straight away we get a banner grab from this. So 220 successful, the name, the version, and the operating system. Really, really valuable information. So from here, we now need to start querying users, querying the SMTP. And there's a million ways that we could do this. Let's go through the SMTP user enum. So SMTP-user enum. We're going to give it a capital M for method, and we're going to call the verify method to verify if our users, and we're going to give it a user share metasploit framework. We want to go into the data, word list, Unix, yeah, and then find a users.txt. So long story, we'll go through this in a minute actually. Then we go for -t, and the target is 192.168-88.130, and we let that run. So as you can see, we get a bunch of users. Now we need to take a list of users found from this host and create a user list that we might be able to use later on down the line, or even for our report. So as we can see, you know, root exists, backup exists. All of these are usernames that SSH could potentially come back with. We would want to keep these. We would want to save these off. We would want to save these off. We would want to save these off. I'm walking halfway in through the recording. Nonetheless, we would want to save these off for our reporting phase. We are verifying the user. So let's go back to the command actually here. So smtp users none is the tool. The method that we want to use is verify, and we found that from our nmap scan, I believe. Wherever that's gone. Sorry, here, verify, there we go, miles away there. So yeah, cool. So yeah, SMTP, the method is verify, and the user list, we could put -user, and we could have just wrote root to try and log in as the user root. But in this case, we've taken all of these users, or we want to take all of these users, and we want to query against that as well. So the way we would do that is we would take this command that we just ran, and we would pass it to grep. American keyboard, by the looks of it, that means that. There we go. So grep exists. So basically what we're doing is we're doing that same command to get all of this information, but I'm only interested in getting the usernames. And this is how we would do that. So we know that we're just after anything that says exist effectively. So we're going to pass it to grep. We're going to grep for exists, and then we're going to pass that to cut -d for a delimiter of a space and American keyboard once again. In field 2 is that, yes, field 2, and then we're going to call that I don't know, Vulnix users.txt. Awesome. Run that command. It didn't like that. Okay. I cannot type today. No. Okay, cool. So let's ls. We now have Vulnix users.txt. So we did the same command, but instead of actually getting the results to the screen, we saved that to Vulnix users, which you can save there in a txt. So let's have a look at that. So cat bring to screen, capital V. And there we go. So now instead of all that noise, we can now just use this list as the usernames only. So bit of a difference there. Instead of giving the IP address and telling me it exists, we've just cut the usernames out of that. And I'll take you through how we did that now. So the same command up until there, you're pretty happy with. We are calling SMTP user tool, method verify. The user, we gave it a user text list, so try these random users in this list, which is part of the word list in the Metasploit framework. The target was obviously our host in question. Then we passed it to grep, which is going to look for anything in this command that says exists. Now, when it finds that, we've passed it to the command cut, which cuts a delimiter of space. Now what that means is 1 delimiter, 2 delimiter. Yeah, does that make sense? So anything between a space is what it's going to count as a delimiter effectively. So all the way, that's a dot, that's a dot, that's a dot, that's a colon. Now that's a space, so that's considered the first delimiter. That would be considered the second delimiter, and that would be considered the third delimiter, or the field. So what we're doing is a delimiter of the spaces, so 1, 2, 3, and we want to expose that second field, 1, 2, just to the screen, which is exactly what it does. and it saves it in this user.txt. So when we cat that text out, we've just got that second field there. Happy? Cool. So then, what we could do now is obviously we could throw that at Metasploit framework. So I'm going to press Command Shift T, load up MS Console in the background because it takes a few minutes because I'm running in a virtual machine. Now we could, I've gone straight into that finger service, which would have been a good idea. I didn't do that first time round, but nonetheless, let's give that a go once that's still loading. So in fact, what we'll do is we'll load it up on both terminals here. In fact, what I might be able to use is Terminator if I've got it. I do. Let's load that up and we can do that on both sides. So Control Shift and E will split it vertically. MSF console, and we'll run them at the same time. Let's just stop this. No, don't stop that one. What are we gonna? Oh yeah, we were gonna query the SMTP. We could have found it that way. Takes a while. So effectively, what we want here is we want to try and find the version of SMTP, which we already do have, but this is another way of going around it. Taking its time. Let's go back into Terminator. And there we go, that's still loading as well. Doesn't look like it's active. And that's just died on me. Everything's just died on me.